The rain-slicked streets of Portland swallowed my frantic footsteps as I bolted from the dimly lit bistro, heart slamming like a trapped animal against my ribs. That blind date, arranged by well-meaning friends who swore he was perfect for an omega like me, had twisted into a nightmare faster than I could finish my first sip of overpriced Merlot. His grip on my wrist had tightened like a vice when I tried to pull away from his slurred demands, his breath hot and sour with entitlement, whispering threats that made my skin crawl. I yanked free, shoving past the waiter, and exploded into the downpour, the city lights blurring into streaks of neon regret. But freedom came at a cost. My heel caught on a cracked sidewalk grate, sending me sprawling forward in a tangle of limbs and terror. I braced for the cold bite of concrete, for the scrape of knees and the sting of humiliation. But instead, solid warmth enveloped me, arms like forged steel catching my fall before I could shatter. "Whoa, easy there," a voice rumbled, deep and steady as the Columbia River, laced with that familiar timbre that haunted my dreams for years. My head snapped up, rain dripping from my lashes, and there he was, Rowan Hale, the alpha I'd pined for since we were awkward teens trading secrets under the Willamette Bridge. His emerald eyes locked onto mine, widening in shock, his broad chest rising and falling against me, as if the universe itself had conspired to hurl me back into his orbit. For a split second, the world narrowed to just us. His calloused hands steady on my shoulders, the faint scent of pine and leather cutting through the storm's chill, that same cologne he'd worn at our high school graduation when he'd hugged me goodbye and shattered my heart without even knowing it. Then reality crashed back. The echo of heavy boots splashing behind me, the date's furious shouts slicing through the rain. "Hey, get back here, you little tease." Rowan's jaw clenched, his alpha instincts flaring as he shifted, positioning his body like a shield between me and the approaching shadow. "Elias? What the hell's going on?" he growled. But there was no time for explanations. Only the raw, electric pull of survival and something deeper, something I'd buried under layers of denial and distance. I clung to him, my fingers twisting into the damp fabric of his flannel shirt, the one that hugged his muscled frame like it was made for moments like this. "Rowan, please, just run," I whispered, my voice breaking on the edge of a sob. He didn't hesitate. With a nod that spoke volumes of unspoken loyalty, he scooped me up as if I weighed nothing, his long strides eating up the pavement while the rain lashed our faces like accusatory fingers. We darted into a narrow alley flanked by brick walls dripping with ivy, the kind of hidden path only locals knew, where the city's pulse thrummed softer, more intimate. My pursuer's curses faded into the storm, but my pulse didn't slow, not from fear anymore, but from the intoxicating nearness of the man who'd starred in every forbidden fantasy I'd ever dared to entertain. We didn't stop until we reached the mouth of the alley, where Rowan eased me down against a weathered dumpster, his hands lingering on my arms as if afraid I'd vanish like smoke. The adrenaline ebbed, leaving me trembling, and he shrugged off his jacket, draping it over my shivering shoulders. It smelled like him, earthy, safe, achingly familiar, and I pulled it tighter, fighting the urge to bury my face in it. "Talk to me, Eli," he said softly, using the nickname that always made my stomach flip, his thumb brushing a raindrop from my cheek with a gentleness that belied his alpha strength. "Who was that asshole? And why does it look like you've seen a ghost?" I laughed, a brittle sound that cracked in the humid air. Worse than a ghost, just a setup gone wrong. My friends thought I needed to get back out there after everything. After you left for the Marines, I didn't add. After I watched your truck disappear down I-5 and convinced myself I'd never measure up to the life you deserved. Portland had always been our city. Rain-soaked hikes in Forest Park, late-night drives along the waterfront, sharing greasy fries at food carts while dreaming of futures that never intertwined. But 5 years had carved canyons between us. Me, scraping by as a barista at a queer-friendly cafe in the Pearl District, hiding my omega heats with suppressants and sheer willpower. Him, returning as the town's quiet hero, all broad shoulders and quiet intensity, running a small auto shop that fixed more than engines. It mended the broken dreams of folks like us, the ones society pretended didn't exist. Rowan's eyes searched mine, that piercing green holding secrets I ached to unravel. "You don't have to explain if you don't want to, but you're not going back out there alone tonight. Come on. My place is just a few blocks." He extended a hand, scarred from wrenches and wars unspoken, and I took it without thinking, the simple act igniting sparks up my arm. As we emerged onto the brighter streets, the rain easing to a drizzle, I stole glances at him. The way his auburn hair curled damply at his nape, the subtle flex of his biceps under his tee, the faint scar above his lip from that stupid bike crash we'd laughed about as kids. God, I'd loved him then, in the clumsy way of youth. Stolen touches during sleepovers, hearts pounding when our knees brushed under the dinner table. But alphas like Rowan didn't fall for omegas like me. Not in a world that still whispered doubts about who we were allowed to love. His apartment was above the garage on a quiet side street in southeast Portland, a converted loft with exposed beams and windows overlooking the flickering lights of Mount Tabor. It smelled of motor oil and fresh coffee, a bachelor's haven cluttered with dog-eared paperbacks on queer history, and a well-worn couch that begged for lazy afternoons. He flicked on a lamp, casting golden pools across the hardwood, and busied himself in the kitchenette, emerging with 2 steaming mugs of chamomile tea. My favorite, the one he'd mocked me for back in high school but always kept stocked during our hangouts. "Sit," he commanded gently, nodding to the couch, and I obeyed, sinking into the cushions as exhaustion clawed at me. We sipped in silence at first, the storm pattering against the panes like impatient fingers. Then, haltingly, I spilled it. The date's leering eyes, his alpha posturing that turned possessive in seconds, the way he'd cornered me by the restrooms, hissing about how omegas like me owed him a chance. Rowan's mug cracked audibly in his grip, knuckles whitening. A low growl rumbling from his chest that sent a shiver straight to my core. That primal alpha response I'd only ever imagined in the dead of night. "He touched you." The question was lethal, laced with a protectiveness that made my throat tighten. "Not really," just grabbed my arm hard enough to bruise. I tugged up my sleeve, revealing the faint red marks blooming like accusations. Rowan's gaze darkened, and before I could protest, he was there, kneeling before me. His fingers ghosting over the skin with a reverence that stole my breath. "Bastard," he muttered, his touch igniting fire where fear had lingered. Our eyes met, inches apart, and the air thickened, charged with the weight of years unspoken. I could see it in him, the flicker of recognition, the way his pupils dilated as my omega scent, laced with adrenaline and vulnerability, mingled with his own musky alpha essence. "Elias," he breathed, my name a prayer on his lips, and for a heartbeat, I thought he might close the gap, might finally see the love I'd hidden like a shameful secret. But he pulled back, clearing his throat, standing abruptly to pace the room. "You can crash here tonight. Guest room's yours. We'll figure out the rest in the morning." Disappointment twisted in my gut, sharp as a knife, but I nodded, murmuring thanks as he showed me to the spare space. A cozy nook with a quilt his mom had sewn, the one patterned with stars that reminded me of our stargazing escapades. As I stripped down to my boxers and slid under the covers, the day's chaos replayed in fragments. The date's cruelty mirroring the world's casual dismissals of our kind, the raw power in Rowan's arms, the ache of loving someone who'd never loved me back. Sleep came fitfully, haunted by dreams of what-ifs. His mouth on mine, his body claiming what my heart had offered long ago. Little did I know, across the thin wall, Rowan wrestled his own ghosts, the alpha in him roaring against the barriers we'd both built. Dawn would bring more than coffee. It would unearth truths that could either bind us or break us forever. The morning light filtered through the blinds like hesitant fingers, coaxing me from a sleep tangled with feverish visions. I woke to the sizzle of bacon and the rich aroma of pancakes. Rowan's go-to comfort food, the kind he'd whip up after our all-nighters cramming for finals. My body ached in protest as I padded to the bathroom, splashing water on my face to chase away the remnants of last night's terror. The mirror reflected a man I barely recognized. Hollow-cheeked, with shadows under my eyes that spoke of too many suppressed heats and too few honest connections. At 25, I should have been building a life, not fleeing from it. But Portland's progressive facade hid sharp edges for omegas navigating the dating minefield, where alphas often saw us as conquests rather than equals. Dressed in one of Rowan's spare tees, oversized and soft, swallowing my slimmer frame, I ventured into the living area. He was at the stove, shirtless, his back a map of faded tattoos, a soaring eagle from his marine days, intertwined vines symbolizing roots he rarely discussed. Sweat glistened on his skin from the heat, and I swallowed hard, averting my eyes before he caught me staring. "Morning sunshine," he teased, plating a stack that could feed a lumberjack. "Figured you'd need fuel after that sprint." We ate at the scarred oak table, knees brushing under it in a way that felt both accidental and inevitable. Conversation flowed easy at first, catching up on mutual friends, the garage's latest renovation, my cafe gig where I'd started experimenting with lavender lattes inspired by our childhood hikes. But beneath the banter lurked undercurrents, questions hovering like storm clouds. "So, about last night," he ventured finally, setting down his fork with deliberate care. "You said, after everything. What exactly is that everything, Eli?" My appetite vanished. I pushed eggs around my plate, the weight of confession pressing on my chest. How do you tell the man you've idolized that your everything revolves around him? That I dated betas and alphas alike, chasing shadows of his confidence, only to come up empty? Just life, you know? being Omega in a world that still treats us like fragile glass. My family's cool. Mom's got her book club full of queer allies, but Dad, he worries. Says I need to settle down with someone stable, not chase rainbows. I forced a smile, but it wobbled. And you? Back from deployment, what, 2 years now? Shop's booming from what I hear. Rowan's expression shuddered, that alpha stoicism kicking in. Yeah, it's good. Keeps me grounded. He paused, rubbing the back of his neck. A telltale sign of discomfort I'd memorized years ago. But it's lonely sometimes. City like this, full of folks finding their pack, and here I am, fixing transmissions instead of building something real. His eyes met mine, holding a beat too long, and heat bloomed in my cheeks. Was that longing I saw, or just my desperate imagination? Before I could probe, his phone buzzed. A harsh vibration that shattered the intimacy. He glanced at the screen, face hardening. Shit, it's Jax. Says there's a walk-in emergency at the shop. Some kid's vintage Mustang grenading on the highway. He stood, regret etching lines around his mouth. I hate to ditch you, but go, I insisted, waving him off. I'll bus it home, text you later. And Rowan, thanks for everything. Our hands brushed as he cleared the plates, a spark jumping like live wire. And he lingered, thumb tracing my knuckles in a gesture so tender it stole my air. Anytime, Eli. Doors always open. Then he was gone, the door clicking shut behind him, leaving me adrift in his space, surrounded by echoes of what could be. I wandered the loft, fingers trailing over bookshelves lined with titles like The Velvet Rage and Call Me By Your Name. Proof that Rowan grappled with his own identity in ways I'd never guessed. Tucked behind a stack was a photo album, dog-eared and faded. Our younger selves beaming from its pages. Prom night with me in a rented tux that drowned me, him towering beside me in dress blues. Summer at the coast, arms slung around each other, oblivious to the sparks. Nostalgia twisted into resolve. I couldn't keep running, from bad dates, from my heart, from him. Grabbing my phone, I fired off a text to my best friend, Lena. Worst date ever, but crashed into Rowan. Literally. Need advice. Am I crazy for still loving him? Her reply pinged back instantly. Girl, you're not crazy. You're brave. Tell him. Before life does it for you. Emboldened, I stepped out into the crisp morning. The city awakening with joggers and baristas hawking their wares. Portland streets buzzed with diversity. Drag queens hawking zines at the Saturday market. Couples of all kinds stealing kisses under umbrellas. But for Omegas like me, visibility came with risks. As I rounded the corner toward the bus stop, a prickle raised the hairs on my neck. There, leaning against a lamppost with a smirk that curdled my blood, was last night's date. Derek Voss, all slicked back hair and predatory gleam, nursing a coffee like he owned the block. Look who decided to show her pretty face, he drawled, pushing off the post with lazy menace. At 30-something, he was the epitome of entitled alpha, tailored coat over a physique honed in boardrooms, not battlefields. Thought we'd finish what we started. You owe me an apology, Omega. Fear coiled in my gut, but anger flared brighter. I owe you nothing. Back off, or I'll scream. The street wasn't empty. A mom with a stroller nearby, a delivery guy on his bike. But Derek's presence loomed, his scent aggressive, pheromones thick with dominance that made my knees wobble. He stepped closer, voice dropping to a venomous whisper. Scream, and everyone hears how you led me on. Little Omega tease, playing hard to get. His hand shot out, fingers grazing my elbow, and I jerked back, heart thundering. That's when the roar of an engine shattered the tension. A cherry-red pickup screeching to a halt at the curb. Rowan vaulted out, eyes blazing like forest fire, his alpha aura rolling off him in waves that made Derek falter. Get your hands off him, Rowan snarled, inserting himself between us, his frame dwarfing the other man. Now. Derek's laugh was forced, bravado cracking. This your guard dog, sweetheart? Stay out of it, pal. Rowan's response was a blur. Grabbing Derek's collar, slamming him against the lamppost with controlled fury. Touch him again, and you'll be picking your teeth up off the pavement. Understand? The words vibrated with lethal promise, and Derek nodded jerkily, scrambling away as Rowan released him, slinking into the crowd like the coward he was. I sagged against the truck, breath ragged. How did you? Saw you leave, got a bad feeling. Followed at a distance. Rowan turned to me, cupping my face with hands that trembled slightly. Eli, this can't keep happening. You're too important. His voice cracked, vulnerability bleeding through the alpha mask, and in that moment, under the indifferent sky, I saw it. The mirror of my own longing, reflected back at me. We drove in charged silence, his hand on my thigh, an anchor against the storm inside. Back at the loft, He locked the door with finality, turning to me with eyes that burned. I can't pretend anymore. That photo album? I look at it every night, wondering what I left behind. You, Eli. It was always you. The confession hung, raw and real, and I crossed the space between us, rising on tiptoes to claim his lips in a kiss that tasted of rain and redemption. Soft at first, then deepening with years of pent-up fire. He groaned into my mouth, hands roaming my back, pulling me flush against him as if afraid I'd slip away. The world narrowed to the slide of tongues, the press of his arousal against my hip, the way his alpha scent enveloped me like a promise. We stumbled to the couch, clothes shedding in a frantic trail, his mouth mapping my collarbone, my chest, drawing whimpers I'd saved only for him. Rowan? I gasped, fingers threading through his hair as he nipped at my hip bone. I love you. Have for years. He lifted his head, eyes glassy with emotion. God, Eli, I love you too. Feared I'd lost my chance. That you deserved better than a broken-down alpha with baggage. But there was no brokenness in the way he loved me then. Slow and reverent, entering me with a tenderness that shattered and rebuilt me in equal measure. We moved together, bodies sinking like we'd rehearsed this dance in dreams, climax crashing over us in waves that left us boneless, entwined. Afterward, as we lay sweat-slicked and sated, his fingers tracing lazy patterns on my skin, reality crept back. Derek, he might not stop. I murmured, fear's shadow lingering. Rowan's arms tightened. He will. I'll make sure of it. But more than that, we face this together. No more secrets. He kissed my temple, a vow sealed in the quiet. Yet even as hope bloomed, a darker undercurrent stirred. Whispers from my past, family expectations clashing with this newfound truth. Portland might embrace us, but the world beyond its rainy veil held judgments that could tear us apart. The afternoon unfolded in a haze of domestic bliss. Rowan firing up the grill on his tiny balcony for burgers charred just how I liked, me perched on the railing with a beer, legs swinging as we traded stories of the years apart. He spoke haltingly of his deployments, the sand-swept bases in the Middle East where he'd questioned everything, including the alpha role society shoved on him, finding solace in letters from home that always circled back to memories of me. You were my anchor, Eli, even when I didn't admit it to myself. I shared my own battles, the cafe's underground poetry nights where I'd read verses veiled in metaphor about unrequited love, the suppressants that dulled my heats but amplified my isolation. As the sun dipped, painting the sky in bruised purples, my phone shattered the idyll. A call from my father, voice tight with concern. Elias? Lena mentioned something about trouble last night. You okay, son? Dad had always been the worrier, a beta accountant with a heart as steady as his spreadsheets, but his protectiveness bordered on overreach. I glanced at Rowan, who nodded encouragingly, and I answered honestly, for the first time. Yeah, Dad. Actually, better than okay. I ran into an old friend. Rowan Hale. Remember him? Silence stretched, then a soft chuckle. The auto shop guy? Hell, kid. If that's what trouble looks like, sign me up. Just be safe and happy. That's all your mom and I want. The approval washed over me like balm, unexpected and profound, easing knots I'd carried since coming out at 18. Hanging up, I turned to Rowan, eyes stinging. He likes you. Always has. Rowan's grin was boyish, chasing away the shadows. Good, because I'm not letting go this time. We sealed it with a kiss that tasted of ketchup and forever. But as night fell, unease gnawed. A knock echoed sharp, insistent. Rowan tensed, ushering me behind him as he cracked the door. There stood Derek, flanked by two burly shadows, his face a mask of false civility. Hale, right? Heard you're the hero type. Just came to clear the air about my date. Rowan's stance widened, blocking the view. Air's clear. Leave or I call the cops. The men shifted, pheromones clashing in the hallway like thunderheads, and Derek's smile twisted. Oh, cops? For what? Talking to my Omega. Yours. Rowan's laugh was ice. Elias isn't property, and if you don't back off, you'll learn that the hard way. The standoff stretched, taut as a bowstring, until Derek sneered, "This ain't over," and retreated with his goons. But the threat lingered, a serpent in our Eden. That night, as we made love again, fiercer this time, bodies slamming with desperate need, fear mingled with ecstasy. A reminder that love, for us, was a battlefield. Days blurred into a tentative rhythm. Mornings tangled in sheets, Rowan's lips brushing my neck as we woke. Afternoons at the cafe, where he'd surprise me with deliveries of wildflowers picked from Mount Hood trails, drawing envious glances from patrons. Portland's queer scene embraced us. Lena dragging us to a burlesque show at Holocene, where we danced under disco lights, his hands on my hips, a public declaration that set my blood aflame. Yet Derek's shadow loomed. Anonymous text to my phone. Watch your back, Omega, and graffiti on the garage door, Alpha Thief. Rowan handled it with quiet ferocity, filing reports and installing cameras. But I saw the toll. The way his sleep grew restless, nightmares of sand and screams pulling him from my arms. It's not just him, he confessed one midnight, moonlight silvering his scars. It's me. Back then, I ran because I was scared, of hurting you, of not being enough. Alphas are supposed to protect, but I couldn't even protect myself from the doubts. I straddled him then, framing his face, pouring my soul into a kiss that silenced lies. You're everything. We protect each other. Our joining was slow, worshipful, each thrust to affirmation, until release left us shattered and whole. But dawn brought escalation. A brick through the cafe window, shards glittering like accusations, with a note, stay away from what's mine. The police dismissed it as vandalism, Portland's underbelly too vast for one Omega's drama, but Rowan wouldn't stand idle. We're ending this, he declared, eyes steel. That evening, we met Derek at a neutral spot. A dimly lit bar in Old Town, neutral ground where alphas settled scores with words before fists. The air reeked of stale beer and tension as Derek sauntered in, cronies at his heels. Come to beg forgiveness? He mocked, but Rowan's presence, unyielding, radiating controlled power, made him shift. No begging, just truth. Rowan's voice cut clean. Elias chose me, long before you slithered into his life. Harass him again and it's not cops you'll face. It's me, and every queer ally in this city who knows what men like you do to our own. He stepped forward, not touching, but the alpha challenge hung heavy, pheromones clashing until Derek's goons averted eyes, submission rippling through them. Derek's facade cracked, venom spilling. You think you're better? Some war hero playing house with a needy Omega? He'll tire of you, Hale, just like everyone does. The words landed like shrapnel, but I stepped up, hand in Rowan's, voice steady. Wrong. I choose him because he sees me, not some role. And if you come near us again, you'll face more than fists. You'll face us, unbroken. Derek slunk away, tail between legs, the bar's patrons erupting in cheers that echoed our victory. Outside, under the stars, Rowan pulled me close, whispering, my brave Omega, my love. We walked home hand in hand, the city our witness, but the real battle brewed inward. My heat approaching like a freight train, suppressants failing under emotional strain, threatening to expose vulnerabilities neither of us was ready for. It hit on a Tuesday, insidious at first. A flush creeping up my neck during shift, sense sharpening until Rowan's pine essence from his morning visit overwhelmed me. By closing, I was a wreck. Skin feverish, core aching with need that no pill could quell. Lena sent me home early, texting Rowan a frantic SOS. He was there in minutes, bundling me into his truck, the drive a blur of labored breaths and his hands squeezing mine like a lifeline. At the loft, he barricaded the door, drawing a bath scented with eucalyptus to ease the cramps twisting my gut. I've got you, he murmured, stripping me with reverent hands, lowering me into the steam as if I were porcelain. But the heat raged, Omega instincts demanding alpha, demanding him. Rowan, please, I whimpered, arching against him as he washed me, soap-slick fingers igniting infernos. He carried me to bed, shedding clothes, his body a furnace against mine. Tell me what you need, he growled, restraint fraying as my scent enveloped him, sweet and desperate. You, all of you. Our mating was primal, uninhibited. His teeth grazing my neck in a mark that wasn't quite a claim but whispered promises. Hips pistoning with a rhythm that blurred pain and pleasure into ecstasy. I clawed his back, crying his name as waves crashed, his knot swelling to lock us together, flooding me with release that bound us soul deep. In the afterglow, slick and spent, tears traced my cheeks. Not from sorrow, but overwhelming joy. No more hiding, I vowed, tracing the fresh bite. Rowan nodded, kissing it tenderly. Never again. But as heat ebbed, clarity sharpened the edges of our bliss. Family gatherings loomed, where Dad's subtle probes about settling would test our openness, and Rowan's past deployments hid scars that surfaced in quiet moments, doubts about fatherhood in a world hostile to packs like ours. We faced the first trial at Sunday brunch. Mom's sprawling Victorian in Irvington, table groaning with quiches and mimosas, aunts and uncles orbiting like satellites. I dreaded the scrutiny, but Rowan arrived with a bouquet of peonies. Mom's favorite, and a charm that disarmed even Uncle Ted, the gruff beta who'd once grumbled about modern nonsense. As we sat hip to hip, his hand covert under the tablecloth, conversation veered inevitable. So Rowan, Dad said, eyeing us over his glasses. You two seem close. Anything we should know? The room hushed, forks pausing midair. My pulse thundered, but Rowan's thumb stroked my palm, steadying. Yeah, actually. His voice was calm, alpha confidence laced with vulnerability. Elias and I, we're together, have been circling it for years. I love him, sir, with everything I've got. Gasps rippled. Then Mom's beaming smile broke the ice. About damn time. I always knew you two had sparks. Dad cleared his throat, eyes misty. As long as he makes you happy, son, that's what matters. Tears pricked as hugs enveloped us. The family's embrace a balm against old wounds. But not all battles were won so sweetly. That night, Rowan's nightmare struck. Thrashing awake, sweat-soaked, murmuring apologies to ghosts from desert sands. I held him through it, rocking like a child, coaxing truths from the dark. Losses that haunted, fears of failing me as he'd failed comrades. You're not failing, I whispered, kissing his brow. We're building something new. Us against the world. Yet the world fought back. Derek's final gambit came via a sleazy PI. Fabricated photos emailed to the garage's clients, painting Rowan as unstable, me as promiscuous. Business tanked overnight, whispers turning to stares. Rage boiled, but Rowan channeled it into action. Hiring a lawyer from the local LGBTQ center, countersuing for defamation. I rallied the community. Cafe fundraisers, posts that went viral, turning our story into a beacon for others fleeing shadows. The courtroom climax was electric. Derek crumbling under cross-examination, his lies unraveling like cheap thread. Justice prevailed. Restraining order, settlement that rebuilt the shop stronger. Emerging into sunlight, reporters clamoring. Rowan pulled me into a kiss fierce and unapologetic, cameras flashing our triumph. In the quiet aftermath, we drove to the coast, seaside's windswept dunes, where we'd buried time capsules as kids. Digging it up, we read our childish dreams. Mine, to love fearlessly. His, to protect what mattered. Laughing through tears, we added a new note. Our vows, etched in sand and sea. To Elias, my omega, my heart, Rowan's scrawl began. Forever yours. Back in Portland, life wove us tighter. A commitment ceremony under cherry blossoms, packs of friends toasting our union. Heats shared without shame, his not a homecoming. Adoptions whispered of, building family on our terms. The alpha I'd loved in secret became my partner in light, teaching me that love wasn't a crash, but a steady climb, through storms, to vistas where we stood unbroken, hands clasped, hearts aligned. Years later, on a rainy anniversary, we'd recount that fateful night. The terrible date, the arms that caught me, best collision ever. I'd tease, and he'd pull me close, murmuring, and the greatest love. In a world still learning to embrace us, we'd carved our space. Fierce, tender, eternal. For in running from fear, I'd found not just safety, but the soul who'd run toward me all along.